And now to Rivers State, where the leaders of the All Progressives Congress, APC, have called on the National Assembly to assume legislative functions of the Rivers State House of Assembly to restore constitutional order in the state. The APC Leaders Forum described the impeachment attempt against Governor Siminalayi Fubara as baseless, warning that the move is politically motivated and undermined democracy in the state. The crisis escalated last Friday when the Assembly wrote to the Chief Judge of the state, Justice Simeon Amadi, to set up a 7-man panel to investigate alleged gross misconduct by Fubara and his deputy Ngozi Odu. The Assembly, led by the Speaker Martin Amaewhule, insisted that the impeachment process must continue, describing it as the only solution to the political impasse. For deeper analysis on this, I'm joined by legal practitioner Henry Ekine. He joins me live virtually. Mr. Henry, it's good to have you on the news this evening. Let's just begin, shall we? Under what specific provisions of the 1999 Constitution can the National Assembly assume legislative functions of a state of assembly if they were to take the advice of the Leaders Forum for the APC? And do current developments in Rivers State meet this threshold?
It's Section 11, subsection 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, that provides for the possibility of the National Assembly to assume the legislative functions of a state house of assembly. However, excluding the power of the state house of assembly to remove a governor. So that's the general provision of Section 11, subsection 4. But then what will be examined is whether those circumstances that could justify the inability of the State House of Assembly from convening for having the business of the House conducted. That would be the measure or the standard for examining or determining whether it's reasonable to call on the National Assembly to take to evoke that Section 11, subsection 4, and then to take over the proceedings of the State House of Assembly.
Right. So let's get it. Right. Go ahead.
Yeah, as it is in Rivers State, personally, I do not think that at the moment, at least at the moment, that we have degenerated to that point where the Rivers State House of Assembly is unable to convene a sitting or unable to conduct the business of the House, or whether there is that real palpable crisis threatening the Rivers State House of Assembly to properly and effectively function to the extent that it will justify, so that we do not abuse that provision of the Constitution.
All right.
Where it is slight misunderstanding in a state,
right.
Then we call the National, but it has its disadvantage as well to call the National Assembly to begin to legislate for a state. That's not the primary intendment of the provision of that section.
Okay.
It is a situation where there has actually been a complete breakdown of law and order, a complete impossibility of the House to convene, serious crisis that I think should justify that provision, and then the call to invoke the provision of Section 11, subsection 4.
Mr. Henry, hopefully you can see this with me, right? And maybe you can help me term what's going on with the House there, the House of Assembly for Rivers State. Is it a case of political misalignment at this point, or is it a case of unruliness? What is the term to describe it, right? If you're saying that it hasn't gotten to a point of a breakdown where there's the federal can take over from the state, then what then is it? Because so far so good. In the last 3 plenary sessions or House meetings that they've had, it's all the matter on the top of the board there is an impeachment of the governor, which, I mean, yourself and many other critics have argued that this is clearly politically motivated. And so the argument here is, what then would now constitute a breakdown of constitutional order of this at the state level when they have refused to, or they clearly are more focused on removing its head or governor that has been refused to do his job. They refuse to give him audience. They have refused to do a number of things. So what then? Who has the authority to formally determine that such a breakdown has happened? Or clearly this is a political witch hunting?
Yes, as much as it's really disturbing what is happening in the Rivers State House of Assembly, but again, constitutionally, one would justify some of the actions that have been taken by the members of the Rivers State House of Assembly to the extent that the power vested in the State House of Assembly, any of the 36 states, to commence the process of removing a governor is unquestionable, it's unambiguous, it's a clear provision of the Constitution. I have argued, even when I spoke with you the other time, that yes, it's justified for a House of Assembly to feel aggrieved. I am not talking about whether it is reasonable, but that in their own consideration, if they are aggrieved and they think that the reason for their grief and then also the reason for their dissatisfaction with a governor is such that amounts to gross misconduct, unfortunately, that's what Section 188 also appears to expand their power to determine. Then they can convene a sitting, allege that the governor has committed one infraction against the Constitution or another that will amount to gross misconduct, and then issue a notice of allegation of that gross misconduct. But that's all. I have analyzed this morning that from Section 188, subsections 1 to 4, that's where the House of Assembly can take action. Once it gets to subsection 5, it's no longer in their control. So I do not think, apparently, for the sake of our democracy, and also to check the other organs of government, and even the National Assembly, perhaps overzealousness to take over the proceedings of the State House of Assembly, it is not when the State House of Assembly is still able to convene a meeting, have a sitting. It is not about the proceedings of the House, whether it is reasonable or not. It is not about the proceedings of the House, whether it is within the law or not. But it's whether the House of Assembly is peaceful and is able to, through its mechanisms, convene a sitting, which the Rivers House of Assembly at the moment, arguably so, is able to do. And whether the reason they are convening is unlawful, which I hold strongly, that the purported allegation of gross misconduct, even if now it is already sub judice, the issues around them, but the grounds advanced will not be easy to substantiate. And I have not had opportunity to look at the details of the allegation as required by the Constitution, that you don't just allege, but you provide details and particulars. That should be left for the panel when constituted to determine whether the allegations and the grounds are founded or not, or whether they are substantiated or not, or whether they can be established.
Right.
But that alone cannot, I think, suffice the call for the National Assembly to take over the proceedings of the University House of Assembly.
Yeah, but
should be other mechanism for addressing the issues that
But can't it happen? Can it not happen? Have we not seen in the same case of Rivers State when the governor was suspended and its entire house was suspended and a sole administrator was appointed long before it was even somewhat, gazetted, or should I say stamped by our laws, right? And so can the National Assembly independently assume these functions? Or must such an action be preceded by a proclamation or request from the president? Let's just play devil's advocate here, or try to be prophets.
It can happen. It certainly can happen. Like you said, it happened. I have been one of those who didn't justify what happened. And as much as I hold my view that was unconstitutional, unlawful, and illegal, so except we want to continue that disposition to abuse of the provisions of the Constitution and the rule of law, that can go on. And again, the National Assembly does not need a proclamation of a state of emergency. It does not need the president in this regard. It is exclusive to the National Assembly when it comes to Section 11, subsection 4. So yes, we will not be surprised if the National Assembly today makes a pronouncement that in their view, the provision of Section 11, subsection 4 can be invoked. This one does not need the president. It doesn't. It's not what was under Section 305, that even if it got to the end of both sides, where the proceedings of the Universal House of Assembly were also taken up by the National Assembly. That was a mix of a situation. But in this context, even without the state of emergency, we have had that also in Rivers State. During the Rotimi Amaechi's administration, there was a call for the invocation of Section 11, sub 4, but there was no declaration of state of emergency. So it can happen. But then, if it happens, anybody who feels that the National Assembly's call wasn't justified can approach the court to seek interpretation of the provisions of the Constitution vis-a-vis the grounds that the National Assembly will canvass to justify that pronouncement, that proclamation, or that takeover. So I agree with you that it can happen. Even if I've said I haven't seen what could clearly justify that, but I wouldn't be surprised in the next hour that that proclamation is made. If any person is dissatisfied, then it will become a subject for litigation.
Right. Wasn't it just last week Thursday that we saw the courts, or rather the House, the Assembly call the High Judge, the Chief Judge, I beg your pardon, to institute the 7-man panel, which they've now said that they are suspending this impeachment process indefinitely, right? And so I do have to ask about the turn of events that's happening in Rivers State, right, as it pertains to the APC and impeachment, proceedings of impeachment of a governor and a state House of Assembly that have refused to somewhat work in tandem with its executive. One has to ask the fate of Rivers State in the entirety of this whole, and the fate of Wike and the fate of APC. We know that the presidency is back, the vice president is back in the country. A surprising move by the chief judge, by the high courts. What will play out in the next week ahead of the next plenary session of the State House? Your take.
Yes, thank you very much. Very quickly, the Rivers State House of Assembly, like every other House of Assembly in the state, is regulated, haven't been created under Section 90 of the Constitution. It's also guided by the provisions of the Constitution and some internal arrangement that you will find in the standing orders of the House. But the House of Assembly is also bound by the provisions of our laws, and then, of course, also bound to obey the decisions of court. So what has happened in Rivers State? I made an analysis this morning. Section 188 of the Constitution has about 10 subsections. Subsections 1 to 4 begin with the Rivers State House of Assembly or any House of Assembly, where they can lay an allegation, send it to the governor, do their determination whether it should be investigated. But once it gets to transmitting a request to the governor or to the chief judge of the state to constitute the panel, everything about the removal, as far as the House of Assembly is concerned, will pause. The House of Assembly can reconvene and consider other businesses within the House of Assembly and wait until the panel is constituted, and wait until the panel finishes its proceedings and turns in a report to the Assembly. That is when the Assembly will convene at all to talk about the removal that they had initiated. So as it stands now, the Rivers State House of Assembly, at least at this moment, is done with the issues of the proposed or their intended removal and everything about impeachment, so to speak. Where we are in Rivers State now is that the High Court of Rivers State grants
Henry Ekine, the legal practitioner, who seemed to have lost his connection there.
Some interim orders of the state, of the chief judge. Yes, please. So
go ahead.
The chief judge was to constitute the panel, but he was constrained, like he issued a statement, he was fettered and became handicapped, apparently.
We've lost him there. Henry Ekine there is a legal practitioner, just giving us insights as the APC leader pushed for the National Assembly to take over the State House of Assembly in Rivers State, just following proceedings of impeachment and all the political issues going on in the state.